Good evening, everyone. Like you said, my name is Llewellyn, and I'm a senior data science consultant at Syntelli. And tonight, we're here to talk about data scientists. What are they, and what everybody in this room can do to become one. So I will tell you, I'm not going to really sugarcoat anything for you tonight. None of you are going to walk out of here with your life changed tonight, but hopefully somebody walks out of here with a path forward. Because honestly, it takes effort. It's going to take a lot of effort. So that's one thing I really like to keep in mind throughout this, is there are no silver bullets in life or data science. So, before we get started, for some free swag, anybody want to tell me what they're hoping to get out of this tonight? What's the question? What are you hoping to get out of this tonight?
Resume.
Learn how to ask the right questions. Learn the right questions to ask.
What? And I'm not trying to get free swag out of it, really. But hey, it doesn't hurt. I just want to know who's asking for data and why. What data they're looking for. So is it mainly the banks, or is it healthcare? Who's looking for the most data right now?
So that's a great question. That's not what we're going to cover tonight. What we're going to cover tonight is what everybody in this room can specifically do to propel their careers. And it's not really data science specific. We'll give data science specific answers to it, but the concepts stay the same. And you were the first to speak, so thank you. So with that, we'll spend a little bit of time on this slide, not because I care about myself, because I want to point out a few things about how we sell ourselves. Because at the end of the day, we're all assets, we're all resources, and we sell ourselves to employers for some sum of money over some period of time. So, can anybody point out anything that's unusual about this slide? Anything that might not be in the order most people would put it in?
Machine learning.
Put your certs before your degree.
Have you seen this before?
Yep.
That's the perfect answer. I put my certifications first and foremost on the slide. Because at the end of the day, the vast majority of employers don't actually care how long you've worked. Because one of the interesting things that my old boss used to say is there are two types of employees in this world. Employees that have worked the same job for 10 years, and employees that have worked the same job for 1 year 10 times. That's because a lot of people, probably the majority of people, maybe even some people in this room, don't put forth the effort to actually learn. They just stagnate their entire career and do the same things over and over and over again and wonder why they don't get different results. I seem to remember a quote about insanity that comes to mind when you think of that. So one of the best ways, and we'll talk about it 3 or 4 more times throughout this presentation, is certifications. They are the best way to show that you invest in yourself. Because the number one question you're asking an employer, will you invest in me? Will you give me money in exchange for my time? And why would they invest in you if you're not willing to invest in yourself? So that's what we're going to talk about. If you're interested in learning more about the specifics of data science, I do have a blog and a LinkedIn and a Twitter. You're welcome to check those out. I talk a lot about, we'll talk about Azure Machine Learning Studio, which I presented here a few months back. I'm also one of the organizers of the Charlotte BI group. So if you're looking to learn more about data analytics, definitely go there. We are not on Meetup, but we are at sharpbigroup.com. We'll meet on the first Tuesday of every month. And I'm also a frequent member and speaker of an organization called PAS. We'll talk about that here in a second. So, PAS stands for the Professional Association of SQL Servers. It is the world's largest community of Microsoft data professionals. So, PAS as an organization has tons of events. They have a whole bunch of virtual groups, so whatever your interest, Microsoft data related, whether it's down in the SQL Server or data science or anywhere in between, they definitely have virtual groups for you with webinars and speakers from all over the world. They also have a yearly event called PAS Summit, which is the largest gathering of Microsoft data professionals in the world. They have it in Seattle. It will be coming up in November. But more locally for everybody in this room, the Charlotte BI group, along with a couple other groups in the area, co-host an event called SQL Saturday. It's happening in late October this year, and it's a free event. All you have to pay for is your lunch, or you can brown bag it and come for free. Or we'll have speakers from all over the world come right to the show to talk about all things data. So it's definitely a great organization to get involved in if you're looking to advance your data.
Are you going to be in the Llewellyn campus this year?
I don't know where they're being. I don't think that's been settled. Either way, it's not my decision. So before we get into how we can be data scientists, let's talk about what data science is. For some, for a free pin, anybody want to pick out which of these, could be more than one, constitutes what you think data science is?
All.
All of it? Yeah. It's an interesting answer.
Right. What happened? When did it happen? What? All those kinds of things have to be it. Right.
It's probably the first time I've ever gotten that answer. It's interesting because I agree with this answer. I agree with this answer that all of it is data science. Unfortunately, the industry as a whole doesn't. And I try to stick closely to what they do, lest I be run out of town for heresy. So basically, this chart is trying to talk about the path that most organizations take when they start their data journey. And this can apply to people's skills as well, because people's skills follow the same route too. Basically, we start by asking easy historic questions. You know, what happened? Just show me what my sales were last night. You just show me that. And then we move on to what are called diagnostics. So, okay, I know what my sales were last month. Why were they down? Why were they up? Then we move even past that to some of the really hard questions, like what's going to happen next? I know what my sales were last month. Can you tell me what my sales are going to be next month? That's a much harder question. And finally, we get to the real value. How can we make it happen? Which customers specifically should I reach out to because they're going to buy my product? That's where the money is. That's where the money is for organizations, and that's where the money is for our careers. What was that?
And that's where the money is for Russian athletes.
For Russian
to influence elections.
Indeed. So, I will say data science is a huge buzzword. And as we just saw, data science doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. In fact, it's probably a good bet that data science doesn't mean the same thing to any two people. So throughout this presentation, I'm going to try my absolute best to call it advanced analytics as much as possible. I will fail, please don't hold it against me. So, throughout this presentation, we're going to talk about two main categories of things. We're going to start with some basic career advice. I unfortunately had to learn the hard way. For those of you that haven't learned these things, I would advise you pick them up now, lest you learn them the hard way too. And then we're going to talk about the three different types of data scientists, advanced analysts, my mistake, that I see in the industry. And we'll talk about very specific things we can do to land these jobs. So let's start with some basic career advice. Remember back when I talked about investing in yourself. That's literally the only thing we're going to talk about today. That's it. Like I said, there are no silver bullets. It's going to be you going home this weekend and cracking open one of your free ebooks and investing in yourself. So, what are the most efficient ways to do that? Number one is certifications. If you get your free ebook and get a certification, it's going to cost you a couple $100. That may be a lot of money, depending on how much money you do or don't have at the time. I know I've certainly been in that situation. But that is the single best way to show an employer you're willing to dedicate your time and money to bettering yourself. And that will shine so well upon you. You can't even imagine. There are some free options we have. One of the ones I really recommend, and it's something I've been doing for years, is write a blog or start your own project. Instead of sitting around spending an hour a month going to a user group, spending an hour a week reading an ebook, and not really ever applying those skills, one of the easiest things we can do is get out there and actually solve a problem. One of the things I often do is I needed to learn more about data science back when I was first getting into it, more about advanced analytics when I was first getting into it. So what I did was I cracked open Azure Machine Learning Studio and just started following along in the samples, blogging about it as I go. Basically just writing about my journey. And everybody in this room can do that. It doesn't matter if anybody ever reads your blog, because it's about you teaching yourself. Another free option, along with user groups, are webinars and online courses. You can attend those, but like we said, the certifications in the blog or the build your own projects are really the way you can get your hands dirty. Because at the end of the day, you can BS for so long, but you have to deliver at some point. And the best way to get that confidence is to actually build something, even if somebody's not paying you for it. So, after that, you do need some way to communicate who you are and what you want to do. We typically call those resumes. And I know our friends at Signature Consultants would love to help you with this if you'll have them. So a couple tips I have. If we're going to spend so much time on our certifications, on our blogs, on our training, we're going to spend 5 hours a week investing in ourselves, let the employer know you spent that time. Put it front and center, I invest in myself, because I guarantee you every other resume they see isn't going to happen. Also, use your buzzwords. I know we all hate them. It really sucks to narrow yourself down to I am these 3 things, but we are humans and we do have to narrow ourselves down somehow. So emphasize the things that you're really passionate about. Whatever you're looking to do, so whether it's SQL or R or Python or Hadoop or PowerShell or whatever, put it front and center on your resume. Make sure it's big, bold words, so that's the only thing they see when they look at it. And on top of that, just a kind of a pet peeve of mine, professional contact information. When we're looking to get a job, the vast majority of organizations we work for are going to expect us to be professionals in some way, to carry ourselves as an image of that company. And one of the easiest ways to lose that trust very quickly is to have really silly contact information. So the first thing somebody sees when they look at you is donaldduck69@gmail.com, they're throwing your resume in the trash.
Poor guy that's named Donald Duck.
So, now that we've talked about your resume, you need somewhere to show that to people. Resume sitting on your desk doesn't do you any good. So what do you do with it? Networking is absolutely key. I'm sure that everybody in this room can attest to a similar story, but I can tell you, I've probably submitted maybe 200 or 300 online jobs. I have never once heard back, never once in my entire career. Maybe somebody else has had better luck, but I never, ever heard back. So when I moved back here a few years ago, I took a different route. I got on LinkedIn, and I already had a profile. I didn't have too many connections. So I started finding companies in the area that do what I was looking to do. So I was looking to be a data consultant. So I looked at organizations like Cardinal Solutions here in the area. I looked for different consultancies around the area and found anybody with a title of recruiter or hiring manager or talent acquisition specialist or anything like that. And I would just send them a message. Hi, my name's Brad. I read a blog at blah, blah, blah. I'm really interested in data science. I love doing this. If you're looking for people like me, please let me know. And I got responses from every single person. Every person I messaged got back to me and said, yes, I'd like to talk to you. I can't ask for better odds than that. So that's definitely one path to take. But that shouldn't be your only path. As I heard one person say earlier, if you're unemployed, your employment is to find employment. So with that, you've got more time. Don't just get on LinkedIn for 30 minutes a day and send a couple messages. Go to your user groups and meetups. Meetup.com is a great way to find organizations just like this. Charlotte BI Group is another one of them. There are many in the area. Charlotte's got a great tech user group scene. So attend as many of those as you can. Specifically ones that are related to what you want to do. Because almost all of them have lovely people that are recruiters or are offering jobs. And you can talk to them. And I promise, if you give your resume to 10 recruiters in a month, you'll have some job offers the next month. So we talked about recruiters. Another thing is interact with thought leaders. So one thing that people often don't take advantage of at user groups, and I watched, as I sat up here and watched you network, like I said, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, there wasn't a whole lot of it going on. The speaker at a user group and the people who are running the user group are almost always somewhat senior in their careers and likely have connections for jobs. So you would be foolish to not talk to the speaker, the recruiter, and all the people who run the user group, because they will likely have opportunities for you. So You'll have time at the end. Don't miss that opportunity again. With that, let's say you've done all that other stuff right. You've really hit the road. You've gotten that interview. What do you do now? So with that, and I can tell you this from my own personal experience. On both sides of the table, people simply do not prepare for job interviews. I once walked into a job interview not even knowing the name of the company I was interviewing at. I was physically there. I didn't bother looking at the name on the wall when I walked in. Needless to say, I did not get that job. So, a little bit of preparation. What was that?
How did you get the interview?
Through a recruiter.
Good. The recruiter sent you the address without telling you the name.
Oh, no, they told me. I just didn't care enough to remember. Arrogance is the death of us when we're looking for jobs. So, 5 minutes of preparation. What's the name of the company I'm interviewing for? What do they do? If you can find information on the specific job, find it. If you can find information on the person you're interviewing with, do it. Look up their LinkedIn. Make a talking point with them. Say, hey, I noticed that on your LinkedIn, you're really interested in this. Can you tell me about it? And start this dialogue. People love talking about themselves far more than they do talking about you. So if you can get them talking, the interview's going to go just fine. Also, we talked about that build your own project. You spend all that time getting your hands dirty building something. This is where it pays off. Bring it to the job interview. I can't tell you how many people I've interviewed and I'm trying to figure out, does this person have Power BI skills? Does this person have R skills? Can you make a predictive model? All of those questions would have been moot had they brought a predictive model to the interview with them and showed it to them. I would have stopped the entire interview and just looked at what they had to show. Because that's 1,000 times better than me asking them obtuse questions that may or may not give me the answer I'm looking for. On top of that, it is very, very important to stay positive. Just because you get rejected from a job doesn't say anything about who you are or your value. I once interviewed, I kid you not, a world-famous statistician for a job. He probably gets 100 job offers a day. Everybody knows him. We interviewed him, and I turned it down. Said, we don't need him, because he wasn't a good fit for our organization. He was amazing at what he did. He was far smarter than I am, but he wasn't a good fit for what we were looking for. But that doesn't say anything negative about him, and it doesn't say anything negative about you when you may or may not get that job you were looking for. So, let's say you've already got a job. You're one of the lucky ones in the room that already has a job, or you just landed that job. What can you do to, one, excel at that job, and then make your next job even better? So, training and certifications. It doesn't stop when you're employed. It keeps going. I probably spend 5 hours a week just reading and reading ebooks and reading articles. Get your free ebook. We'll talk about those again. Reading books and articles and watching webinars and attending user groups. I do all of that even though I'm employed. I also continually work on my certifications. We saw the plethora of certifications I have up there. There was obviously a point in my career where that list was empty. It started because I got out there and did it. Big advantage is a lot of employers will pay you to get certifications. They'll pay the $200, $300, $400, $500 fee to get a certification. It'll come out of their pocket, not yours. So definitely take advantage of that. Another thing that very few people take advantage of, and this shocks me. You have a person, assuming you're employed, or in school, who's in a position of authority over you right now, who watches you on a daily basis, sees what you excel at, sees what you struggle at. Why would you not ask them for advice? They know exactly what you need to work on. And I've never personally had a manager that wouldn't give me a one-on-one if I asked. Say, hey, can we sit down for 30 minutes? I'm looking to advance in my career and I'd like to know places where I can improve. They will put a laundry list of things you can do better now. And on top of that, again, stay positive. Some of you might not like the answers you hear from your boss. I know I've gotten some answers I didn't want to hear before. I used to be we'll call it arrogant, because I don't know a better word for it. But I was extremely arrogant. And I kept getting upset when people told me that. Needless to say, that didn't help. It wasn't until I actually started thinking positive and started thinking, hey, I'm asking for help. Maybe I should take the help I'm being given. Started taking the advice, that's when my career really took off. So, definitely take advantage of your current job as much as possible.
I just noticed that you're flipping through. You have a very impressive master's degree in statistics and being a true statistician. What about the education route? I realize most of them kind of along in our career, but say someone like high school age trying to figure out what to do. Is certification the path, or is there the educational foundation of like a bachelor's followed by a master's? What are your thoughts on this?
So Nate's question was basically education or certifications or both. What's the optimal answer there? I don't think anybody's landed on that yet. Honestly, I've heard from all different sides. I will say, when you get really into what we'll call the pure data science, or what we'll see soon as I call it statistician, they tend to harp on education. I don't necessarily think they're right in that mindset, but again, that's their mindset, and you have to play to them, not me. But I do know a lot of people who also say certifications are a great route to go. My answer is, any time you spend investing in yourself is time well spent. But I can't tell you, oh, you need to go back to school for 6 more years to get a degree. You need to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to get that degree. That's not always the route for everyone. Certification's a couple $100, and that can keep you started.
Sometimes it depends who the certificate is from.
That's a great answer.
And then, like there will be so many people with just certificate from left, right, and then just bottom or whatever. It's the same issue will happen someday with the job market. That both ways.
He's making a great point. When you're getting education or certifications, it matters where it's from. And I'm not just talking name recognition. I'm talking there's different value there. I'll give specific links here, and I'll send this out to the group afterwards, so that you guys can have this presentation. I'll give you links to the certifications that I think are important. I'm not the source, I'm not the font of all knowledge here. So definitely do your own shopping. I will tell you, as Nate said, I have a master's degree in statistics from South Carolina. I am woefully undereducated to be a data scientist because I didn't go to a school that's really any good at it. I learned theoretical stuff that nobody cares about. I can say that UNCC and NC State are both two very good schools for analytics, and they pump out candidates that are extremely good fits for roles right now. So if you are planning to go back to school, definitely do research on which schools actually provide good job placement. Because I can tell you USC does not.
Just to add a question there. Years ago, I remember we had a presentation where they were building the data warehouse at UNCC and created that program. Is that this, as far as a statistician, is that same wheelhouse per se, or are that am I thinking of that two different silos per se?
No, that's actually really relevant because we'll be talking about something about this presentation called the Advanced Business Intelligence Architect and the Advanced Big Data Architect, which are basically the data warehouse experts of today. So it's still very relevant. Did you have?
I know Duke University has a year-long data scientist course that you can take, and it's just one course after one course after one course. I think it's 3 courses or 4 courses, but you're going to learn our programming, you're going to learn all the stuff that you need to be a data scientist.
That's also great.
There are also Coursera is a website where you can take courses from like various universities. Other business, data science, anything. There are courses from Duke, UNCC, Stanford, all of the universities. They're all across the country.
So he brought up Coursera, which I think is a great segue because we're about to get to that. So first, let's talk about the statistician or the advanced data analyst. They are what probably 80% of people think of when they think of data scientists. So, well, what do they do? The picture on the right you see is a tool called SAS. It's falling out of favor nowadays. It's still slightly relevant, but it's losing to R and Python. We'll talk about that. But it is a programming language, and it's a bunch of numbers. So this is very much a numeric-driven type of role. Specifically, they focus on individual analyses, meaning this role, oftentimes, your boss will come up and say, sales were down last week, I need to know why. So you'll have some sort of analysis, you'll run, you'll clean some data, and you'll give them an answer, and next week, new problem, new analysis. The relevant tasks here are, you start by cleaning data. So data has, there's a concept called dirty data. What that means is data that's not necessarily ready for what you're trying to do with it. And it comes in all sorts of forms, and it's probably 80% of the entire job is just taking data and making it ready for whatever you're trying to do with it. And that's a whole other talk in and of itself. Once you have that data clean, you have to build and evaluate different predictive models. So for instance, you might build regression models or classification trees or neural networks or things like that. And then you present your results. So, if this is the type of job you're looking for, here are 4 job titles you might see related to this. First would be data scientist. I have an asterisk by that because as the whole point of this talk, data scientist means different things to different people. So if you see that, definitely read the job description and look for some key things. We're talking about here today. Data analyst might also be this role. Again, read the job description because data analyst could also refer to, say, an Excel jockey who builds things in Excel all day. There's nothing wrong with that job. Please go for it if you're interested in it, but not this job. Also, anything with statistical analyst or statistical modeler would also be a good fit. Again, I'll send these slides out, so you don't necessarily have to take gratuitous notes. If you want this job, what are the job requirements? This is the one that saddens me, because you really do need a math or stats background. I can't say how much. Like I said, I have a master's degree in statistics and I'm underqualified. But there are people in certain situations who can get by with a little bit of math or stats knowledge. But you honestly need to know the difference between neural networks and linear regression, logistic regression, and classification trees. You need to know all of that to do this job effectively. And while it may be a candidate's market right now, employers are at an all-time low for training. Meaning the vast majority of employers aren't going to train you to do anything. They're going to expect you to walk in day one and be an expert. It's very unfortunate, but it is the state of things. So those are the cards we have to play. If you do have that math or stats background, the two most commonly used tools are R and Python. Python's gaining a lot of steam lately. In fact, Microsoft released a survey about a year ago showing that Python has finally overtaken R as the data science language of choice, and it's only growing. So if you had to learn a new language today around data science, definitely choose Python.
Why is that?
Python is a general purpose programming language. Meaning it can be used for a lot of things, but it's not even a low-level programming language. I don't know how much you guys might know about things like C++ or Java. They're very difficult to code in. You have to understand objects and all that sort of stuff. So it takes a long time. Code blocks become yay long. Python's much shorter. It's a declarative programming language, and that makes it a lot more compact. So it's just easier to digest and learn. And on top of that, Python's being extended to do other things. So there's a process called ETL, extract, transform, load. It's that data cleaning process we talked about. It's kind of what it is, preparing the data. There are organizations today that are using Python for the entire process. They ingest their data with Python, they clean it with Python, they model it with Python, they present it with Python. Python can do all of that. R is going to have a lot of trouble doing both.
Does Microsoft have their own data analytics, or are they using Python?
The question was, does Microsoft have their own data and analytics, or are they using Python? I'm not sure what you mean by their own data and analytics.
Azure gives you the power of data analytics, out of the box.
So Azure is a platform for you to put things on. What you put on it is ultimately your choice. So Microsoft has heavily embraced Python as a language of choice. In fact, I've got a whole other presentation about doing data science in Microsoft Azure, and we've got a whole slide about all the places you can use Python. So Microsoft has absolutely adopted Python as a first-class language. So, moving on. If this is the job you want, where can you find the free online training? How do you get your toes wet? How do you figure out, is this really what I want to do? If you're trying to learn R, there's a website called RStudio, and they have their own set of webinars. You can watch it, and they'll teach you all sorts of different things about how to use R. Python's a bit more dispersed, so you'll have to find those links yourself. But there are a lot of great Google articles and YouTube. I learned Python off of Google just fine. SAS also has their own set of webinars too, so you can check those out. Let's say you watched a few webinars and you feel like this is kind of what I want to do. I want to get my feet wet. In order to do that, let's build something. Get your hands dirty, actually use the tools and see what they're about. There's a website called Kaggle. How many people here have heard of Kaggle? Okay. Kaggle is a competition website. How many people heard of the competition maybe 5 or 6 years back at this point where Netflix offered $1 million to anyone who could create a better recommendation algorithm than they have? They did that on Kaggle. That data set is available on Kaggle. You could go home right now and try to build a better recommendation algorithm for Netflix. As a side note there, somebody won that competition and Netflix did not pay them. Netflix didn't pay them because their solution was so complex, so convoluted that Netflix couldn't actually use it. So it just goes to show you that just because you get great results doesn't mean your solution is a good solution. That's a whole other topic. So once you go to Kaggle, you find a data set that suits you. There are data sets from all over the world. R and Python are completely free. You can download those. SAS has a 14-day free trial if you want to give that a shot. And pick which one of these you like or try them all. It's really up to you. Like I said, if you're starting from scratch and you're looking for the most bang for your buck, I would definitely go Python. Once you've done that, now you've watched a few webinars, you've gotten your hands dirty, you've got your blog, you've got your build your own project, whatever. Time to get ready for that interview, time to put a certification beside your name. There's an R course on Coursera, like we talked about, from Johns Hopkins University, called the Johns Hopkins University course in data science. They utilize R, and it's on Coursera for $49 a month. You can sit in on that course, and they'll show you end-to-end how to use R for data science. If Python's your tool of choice, you can spend $389 to Eureka, and they'll walk you through all of Python for data science. While that link just says Python, that is the Python course for data science. Remember that Python is a general purpose programming language, meaning that if you just Google learn Python, you might stumble on all sorts of things you didn't want to know, like web development. In addition, SAS has their own set of certifications as well, so if that's your tool of choice, you can get those at that point. Any questions about that role? What it does, how you can get it? So, next one we're going to talk about is the Advanced Business Intelligence Architect. This is where things start to get a little bit outside of that advanced analytics realm. Most people try to really focus on that one task of predictive models or data science. They are advanced analytics. As Alan mentioned earlier, really it's all data science, honestly. The entire process is, while we might focus on just the predictive model piece, there's this whole infrastructure around it that is needed to make it work. Being here at an IT pros group, I'm sure I don't have to describe to you how infrastructure is needed to make things run. So there's a lot more to it than just building predictive models, and that's what these roles get into. So what is the Advanced Business Intelligence Architect do? They focus on building what are called relational structures. So what we see on the right here is a screenshot from Management Studio. That's a Microsoft tool. And it shows 6 tables with relationships going between them. So has everybody here used Excel? Understand the concept of a table of data, rows and columns. So a relational model is basically like a lot of Excel sheets. Multiple tables, but they relate to each other. And that has a lot of advantages. So, this role, what exactly do? They focus on building what are called pipelines. So what that means is probably 50% of this job is taking data from point A and breaking it to point B so we can do something. This is what used to be called data warehouses. The term seems to have fallen out of fashion. They're often called data lakes now, but effectively the same thing. Basically bringing data from your 1,000 different sources and bringing it all to a single place so you can combine it and do what you need. They're also involved in creating these databases, as well as building reports off of this data. Because simply moving the data isn't valuable at all. What's valuable is when you can report on the data, when you can see what's going on inside. If this is the role for you, here are the titles you would look for. Report developer and database developer are almost guaranteed to be this role. Data engineer is a new title that's popped up over the last couple of years, kind of in contrast to data scientist. Be careful with this title because data engineer might also mean big data engineer, which is the role we're going to talk about after this. Also, data modeler sometimes means this. More often than not, it means the statistician we talked about before. So, what are the job requirements? This is where I like it a lot. So, I could almost just scratch out the entire education requirement of this. Everybody in this room is qualified to be a business intelligence engineer. And that's because we don't need this really core background of all the different things you have to learn. Most of these tools are pretty self-explanatory. You can learn how to use the tools and then learn the rest on the job. So, what tools would you learn if this was for you? Some astute viewers might recognize that all of these tools are Microsoft tools. And that's not because we're here in Microsoft. That's not because I work for Microsoft, because I don't. That's because I can honestly say Microsoft is the big player in the data game right now. 5 years ago, Microsoft was not doing too hot. They were getting beat out by Oracle and Teradata and all those companies. And Satya Nadella has done a great job of bringing Microsoft into the 21st century. And now they are the company to beat for data. So anytime anybody asks me, what certification should I get for data? My answer is always Microsoft. Absolutely. So, the tools we'll talk about here are first, Microsoft SQL Server. That's their core SQL tool that is often used on premises. I can guarantee those of you that are employed, wherever you work, has some SQL Server sitting somewhere. I can almost guarantee. A newer tool is a tool called Power BI. It is basically a reporting tool that allows you to do everything else right in the same tool. So it's business intelligence in a box, basically. You can take data from literally hundreds of different sources, bring it in, you can do all of your cleaning, all of your mashing, munging, manipulating, relating, all of that inside Power BI, and then you can report the results inside Power BI. You can do it all in one place. And that gives it a huge advantage for people who are looking to learn, because it gives you a single tool you can learn. A single tool with a drag and drop interface that can teach you all of the different things you need to know to be a business intelligence professional.
How much does it cost?
How much does Power BI cost? That's the best question all night. It's free. You can just Google Power BI and Microsoft offers it completely free.
No limitation.
What was that?
No limitation on functionality?
No limitation. Power BI Desktop is completely free. If your organization is going to use it, there's like $10 per user, but that's not their problem. They'll deal with that. Is there another?
So the person that kind of fits this mold, are they also kind of, I noticed like, just in my own examples, there's always API integration that you consider talking system to system. Does that person still fit this mold, or is that somewhat separate?
So the question was around, does someone with skills in API integration might fit here? Like I said, the barrier to entry here is very low. So while you wouldn't do a lot of API integration traditionally in this part, those skills are certainly transferable. Anybody who's even the slightest bit technical can pick up Power BI pretty easily. And there are a lot of jobs out there that utilize Power BI, or at least utilize things very similar to it. And finally, there's Microsoft Azure. That's Microsoft's public cloud. There is only one path forward in data and technology, and that's in the cloud. So start working on your skills right now. So with that, where can you find free online training? All of this being from Microsoft has a big advantage in that Microsoft has something called the Microsoft Virtual Academy. And it is honestly the best place I've ever found for webinars. They have hundreds of webinars of all different types related to literally anything Microsoft's ever offered. So almost every Microsoft exam I've ever taken, I've gone to Microsoft Virtual Academy, search for exam 770. Exam 770 will pop up, and there will be a webinar specifically catered to, here's what you need to know to pass this exam. They're basically giving the certifications away to you. There's also a consultancy out of Jacksonville, Florida called Pragmatic Works that has free webinars every Tuesday, and you can look back at their entire history of them at that link there. And they offer webinars on pretty much everything in the Microsoft data space. So if you're looking to learn more about SQL Server or Azure or any of those, they have all the information you ever want.
Would that still be the first link you mentioned there? Like, say the first me being selfish a little bit. I really want to use Power BI to make some data look prettier. I don't necessarily want to go the professional route, but just more so, I've got this data, I want a better way of presenting it than pivot tables in Excel. Is that still a path to go, or should I be looking in a different direction if I'm just trying to get some basics out of Power BI, not necessarily get too advanced?
So his question was, if I'm just trying to get started with something, maybe I'm not looking to be a super professional at it. His specific tool was Power BI. Microsoft Virtual Academy has that as well. They have courses all the way from, here's literally how you install Power BI, to here's how you can do the most advanced stuff around. I'd also encourage you to, if you're going that route, to also check out PASS as well, because PASS has a lot of those intro webinars as well. Now that you've watched a couple webinars, you figured out this is what I want to do. How do I build my own project? Like we talked about before, Power BI is absolutely perfect for this. It is BI in a box. So you can download Power BI for free at powerbi.microsoft.com. They have a whole slew of sample data sets there, so you can download their data sets. But that's more than just the data. They'll have an entire Power BI, I forget what they're called, workbooks? Or PBIX files ready for you to use, meaning you can see the data as they brought it in, you can see the transformations they did to it, you can see the measures they built, you can see the reports they made out of it. It's a full finished product for you to reverse engineer. So you don't have to start from nothing and figure out what you want to do. They've already built 5 or 6 of them for you, and you can see exactly how it's done. I highly recommend that's the route you go. If you're more development oriented, SQL Server Developer Edition is free as well. So you can go to that link there, you can download SQL Server, you can install that on your machine, and you can get started that way as well. There are a lot of tutorials on SQL Server out there. It's been a tool of choice for many, many years for SQL, so a lot of information. Also, Azure has a free trial. You can sign up for a free trial with Azure. All you need to do is give them your email address. And you can install what's called an Azure SQL database. You just click a couple buttons. It spins up in the cloud. You don't have to worry about it. And it comes with free sample data as well. So you don't even have to deal with your machine or anything like that. So you have a few different options here. If you try all that, figure out, no, this is the way I want to go, how do I get the certification? I'm also a huge fan of Microsoft certifications. I think Microsoft's got the best certifications around. Their certification tests are very easy, but very valuable. So I will, one of the certifications you see here says MCSE, and you might have seen that on my list of certifications as well. That stands for Microsoft Certified Solutions Expert. It's the highest level of certification you can buy from Microsoft. There are some higher certifications you can be awarded depending on your status. But if I see anybody with an MCSE in data management analytics or MCSE in cloud platform and infrastructure, they automatically go to the top of my list. In fact, I would say if you have one of those, you don't even get a tech interview. You don't need a tech interview. I know that you can do the job. So in order to get an MCSE, it's usually anywhere between 3 and 5 exams, covering all realms of things. And as you can see here, they're $165 per exam. But those exams are very broad, so you can pick things that really interest you. For instance, the path I went was I started with just basic, how do you query SQL Server? How do you write a select statement? All that. Read that book, which I have available for free for those of you that would like to send me an email. Read through that book. My employer paid for the exam. Then I went one step further. Said, how do I administer it? The employer paid for the exam. How do I build reports on it? Employer paid for the exam. I literally just walked through it, step by step, and over the course of 2.5 years, I learned a lot of what there is to know about the space. Just because I spend a couple hours a week just reading and preparing for exams.
And the training is online for these exams for free.
So I have ebooks. Don't let it leave this room that I'm giving you stuff. And don't tell the cops. But anybody who wants to send me an email, I will send you a link to my ebooks. Or you can use the O'Reilly one if you want a book I don't have. You can use the O'Reilly link to get that book. Read the book. Go to Microsoft Virtual Academy. Watch any of theirs. Read my blog, other people's blogs, articles. Pull out Power BI and try it yourself. Money is not an option before you get to the certification period. So you can do the entire thing for free. I've never paid a dime for my own training. And the only thing an employer's ever paid for is the exams. So you can definitely do it for free if you're just willing to do it. Any more questions on that?
Do you find that your certifications are something that you have to update, or do they just stand the test of time once you receive them?
I'm not old enough to be able, okay, so to repeat the question, do certifications need to be updated? Microsoft certifications never technically expire anymore. They got rid of that concept. But
my MCSE for NT4.
Yeah. But I will say, if anybody's pulling out their SQL Server 3 certification from 1992, that's not going to sit too well with me. In fact, I would prefer you don't show me that certification at all, because that shows how little you put recent effort into things. But so, yes, certifications do need to be updated, especially in the data world, because the data game is completely different now than it was 2 years ago. Like I said, Python's the tool of choice right now. If you went out 5 years ago and said, I'm using Python for data engineering, people would have been, what's Python? So the game has completely changed. So you will need your certifications updated.
Just out of curiosity, because it sounds like your MCSC or your certifications, your name goes at the top of the list. Sure, your own. Have you ever hired somebody that really didn't have any certifications, or do you tend to really lean heavy that direction?
So the question was, would I personally hire someone without certifications? I wouldn't trust my judgment on who gets hired. One, because I'm not going to be the one hiring you. What I will say is certifications are just a way to get your name out there. It's a way to show people quickly that you can do something. At the end of the day, you're still going to have to interview, and you're going to have to pass that interview with all the same interview tactics as before. So the certification will not land you a job. On that note, there is something that will land you a job. If you go out to anybody that works in the Microsoft data team and talk to them about, ask them who their boss is, and ask them how their boss got their job. The answer is almost universally going to be through the community. Microsoft is very exclusive about, in order to be kind of senior level or above at Microsoft, you must be well known in the community. And there's a reason for that. It's because in order to be a community speaker, there's only one thing you need. I have one more piece of swag to give away. Can anybody tell me the only thing you need to be a successful community speaker? It's also the only thing you need to be successful in your career. I heard experience, credibility, college, knowledge. All of those are good answers. They're not the only skill you need. The only thing you need.
Thoughtful leadership.
What was that?
Thoughtful leadership.
Thought leadership.
Thoughtful leadership.
Or thoughtful leadership. Also, that's good answers. Not quite.
Confidence.
That's a good one. Not what I was looking for, but I'll give it to you. Was that you in the back?
Yeah.
You in the back. So what I was looking for was passion. It's literally the only thing you need. The only thing you need to do is get up here and care. I tell you, the first presentation I ever gave, I probably knew less about the topic I was presenting than everybody I was presenting it to. That didn't matter. They didn't care. All it takes is the courage to get up here and the passion to really want to talk about something. And then you just repeat that over and over again. You pick a new topic, get passionate about it, learn more about it. Do that over and over and over again, and passion's contagious. What people look for in jobs is passion. I asked that question to an entire panel of people who hire for data scientists in this area. People who work for my organization, Syntelli, people who work for Red Ventures, local banks, and whatnot. I asked them, what's the one thing you look for in candidates when you're hiring? And they said, passion. You have to care about what you do. And that's it. So with that, let's move on to the last role. So before we talked about the business intelligence architect. This is related, but it's the big data architect. I'm sure everybody, or I'm sure most people here have heard about big data, what is it, and all that stuff. We're not really going to talk about that here. That's a whole presentation all on its own. But basically, that relational model we showed before, a few tables connected by relationships, that doesn't scale all that well. Sure, you can get it out to 100 tables, 1,000 tables, millions of rows, billions of rows. Eventually that falls apart. If you're dealing with the quantity of data that Amazon is, you've got millions of records every day. You've got trillions of records in their databases. Physics is not their friend when it comes to relational models, so they need something else entirely. And that's what big data is. Big data says, instead of using one source, one machine, one database, it distributes the whole thing. It says, I'm going to have 10 servers that all talk to each other and try to do the job as one. And that's what we call distributed structures. What we see on the right here is something called an HDFS architecture. That stands for Hadoop Distributed File Store. Hadoop is the de facto standard for all things big data right now. So if you're looking to move into the realm of big data, you need to learn Hadoop and what it is and how it works. So, what is this job? Basically the same things that the relational database did, the relational architect. They create those same pipelines, although those pipelines are more complicated because they use more complex tools. Those databases are more complex, and their analyses are more complex as well. So it's all the same stuff, just a little bit harder. If you're looking to get into this role, these are the types of titles you can look for. Big data engineer would definitely be this role. Data engineer could also be this role. Like we said, it could also mean the BI engineer. So read the job description there. And Hadoop developer would also likely be this role. What are the job requirements here? Here's where the job requirements start to ramp back up again. Math and stats are still useful here. The ability to understand the math behind the scenes is often helpful. But computer science comes into play. And there's a reason for that. The low barrier to entry of the business intelligence space is largely due to how easy their tools are. Anybody here can use a drag and drop interface in Power BI or Tableau, Click, or any of those. Those drag and drop interfaces don't exist in big data. Big data is too young, so everything you do here is programming. Everything you do here is coding. A lot of it's in Java, or a language called Scala, which is basically Java. And it's hard. So computer science degrees help a lot here. Python is also very, very popular here. In fact, it's the easiest way to get into this space. If you aren't already a computer programmer or understand Java, then Python's a really easy way to get into this space. I also point out Azure here, and we'll talk about that here in a second. So, where can you find free online training? One of the largest distributors of Hadoop is called Workforce, and they have a long set of webinars you can find for all things Hadoop. Microsoft doesn't have a lot of information on this, but they do have a set of webinars called the Data Series for Analytics. If you look that up, they have a few videos on some of the different architectures like Spark and HBase and all that stuff. So we'll find that. And those are the same links we saw before for Python and Azure. Again, I'm going to send these out so you don't necessarily need to take notes, or you're free to Google them when you go. Now, how do you build your own project? Here's where it gets very gnarly. So Hadoop is open source. You can go to hadoop.apache.org, download Hadoop. I don't even know if that word technically applies here. You're going to have a very, very hard time installing. In order to install the smallest possible Hadoop cluster, you will need to spin up 5 separate Linux VMs all inside your single machine. You'll have to install and configure master nodes and control nodes and worker nodes and gateway nodes, and it's a nightmare. You want to know why big data took so long to take off? It's because of that. I can guarantee you, I understand how Hadoop works reasonably well. I could not pull off installing it on my machine. So that's where Azure comes in. Azure has a tool called HD Insight, and they have another tool called Databricks. They are Hadoop on Azure. You can create your free Azure trial. You can create an HD Insight cluster, click create, it does all that hard work for you. So it'll do the hard work. All you have to do is bring some data, write some code, and you've got your analysis. I will say, if you're looking to learn more about Hadoop, or specifically how to write Python or PySpark or things like that, I would start with Databricks, just because it's a little bit easier to understand. It uses what are called notebooks, which are very interesting technology. If you're looking for data sets, Kaggle is a great place to go for that. So the question was posed before of why Python over R. Here's another big reason. Python's been heavily adopted by the open source community as its standard. While you can use R in Hadoop, it's not nearly as common, so you'll get a lot less help if you try to go that route. So where can you find good certifications? The 2 main distributors of Hadoop out in the space right now are Hortonworks and Cloudera. They both offer their own certifications. Hortonworks is $100 per, and Cloudera is $295 per. I'm currently working on my Cloudera certification. And there's the same Python and Azure certs we saw before. There's a new link down here. It says MCSA in data engineering with Azure. We didn't talk about MCSA. We talked about MCSE, Microsoft Certified Solutions Expert. MCSA is Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate. It's actually one level down. So the way Microsoft system works is, there's like 20 or so relevant data MCSAs. You pick one of those, you take 2 or 3 exams. For instance, I got mine a couple years ago, and I went with querying SQL Server, administrating SQL Server, and building data warehouses in SQL Server. And then I've got my MCSA in SQL Server as well. They have a new one called an MCSA in Data Engineering with Azure. That takes all the big data tools in Azure and wraps them up in one MCSA. It's currently in beta, so there's not a lot of information out about it. You can take the exam. There are no ebooks available for it. There's not a lot of information. I'm currently waiting for the ebooks to come out before I take it. But if you're of interest, you're more than welcome to take a peek at it now. So, before we get to the review, any questions?
I got one that it is about 35,000 feet above,
Sure.
above this thing. And going back to the definition of data science, you get 4 items, and the top 2 ones with a box on it. What will happen, and how do we make it happen? Something along those lines. And what I was looking for is, can you provide an example of when data science delivered actionable answers to these questions to companies, and they were able to implement off of that? Just to have an idea of like a real life application.
Sure. So his question was around, can I talk about a real life application of this? And I certainly can. So my last job, I worked for a consultancy that did a good portion of their chunk directly inside Microsoft. So I've actually worked on some of Microsoft's own websites. And they have a program aimed at their partners where basically their partners train their customers on how to use Office 365. And they had a whole bunch of questions around that of, is our training effective? When we train customers in how to use our product, do they buy it more often? And in order to answer that question, we answered that question using the basic historic stuff. The answer was yes, it definitely does. But then they asked the next question of, now that we know our training is effective, can you tell me which customers is most effective? Which customers can you tell me, if you train this customer, they are going to buy your product? And just as importantly, can you tell me this customer is never going to buy your product, stay away? We were able to actually answer both of those questions. We built them a prediction algorithm that told them specifically, target this customer, leave this customer alone. And we put it right in their website. So they can see, right when they look at their list of customers, they can see, target these guys. 1, 2, 3. So we put that right on our website for them to see.
Okay, good, yeah. Okay. I appreciate that.
No problem, and there's thousands more studies like that. So.
How do you see artificial intelligence playing a role in data science?
The question was, how do I see artificial intelligence playing a role? What's artificial intelligence?
If it's Hal, you're out of work.
Yeah, I mean, I just described to him how I effectively replace a person whose job it was to make those decisions with a computer. Getting rid of the ethical dilemma of that, which is not lost on me. I don't know if there's much of a difference between artificial intelligence and data science, advanced analytics. It's kind of all the same. So I guess it depends how you define it.
The machine learning, well, the whole thing is all of this, I know that, for example, Amazon and Microsoft, they've got a ton of information and data about just about everything possible that can be matched up with psychographics and God knows what else to determine relationships that maybe aren't so obvious. Is that part of data science?
So the question seems to be, is machine learning part of data science, or what relationship do they have? And I'll pose the same question back to him I posed to the other gentleman. What's machine learning? What's, like, it's all, this is why I don't like using the term data science, because it's very unclear what it is and what machine learning is and what advanced analytics is and what AI is. Effectively, we're replacing human thought with computers. And define that how you will, but it's coming, and it's definitely interrelated.
Can you maybe address data analytics and artificial intelligence when it comes to our cars? Honda with collision mitigation, lane departure, tells me whether awake or not. Camera looking at me. A bar of coffee. If I get 4 bars, I'm wide awake or whatever. It's mind-boggling the information that's being processed and created.
So I guess it was more of a comment.
It's data analytics to a certain extent. They're having to, how awake I am, they're looking at my facial expressions, whether my eyes are open. Some simple things, but,
So we can definitely get into a topic around that. If we can finish this, then we can delve into that, because this is getting kind of academic at this point. And I would like to leave everyone with an actionable information before we go down that. Did you have a question?
Yes. I was just wondering if you've always had the same career path, but then you give these certifications with how sometimes computers read resumes. Do you think the certifications would be enough to get you an interview?
So that was a multi-part question. Her first question was, have I always had the same career path? I'll tackle that second. And her second question was, do certifications help you get past the automated resume machines? Like I said at the beginning, I don't use those because they've never, ever, ever worked for me. You're more than welcome to try, but go out, physically hand your resume to somebody, or better yet, send them an email. Get their card and send them an email. Don't give me paper resumes. What am I supposed to do with that? I'll give you my card, you send me an email with your resume, and I can forward it to people who can do something. But yeah, talk to people, real people, not machines, which is counterproductive because I'm telling you about machines. But yeah, talk to real people. As far as my career, if we can finish this, I'll go into that if you guys want. So, let's review real quick. First, we talked about the statistician or advanced data analyst. This role builds predictive models. You want to know what your sales are going to be next week? That's what this role does, all day. It has a very high barrier to entry, unfortunately. You need to know a lot of math and stats to do it. If you don't have, at the very least, a strong bachelor's degree in it, look elsewhere. With that said, demand is very high for this right now. A lot of companies are looking for this. I do make a bit of a bold prediction, and I say this is going to decrease in the next 5 to 10 years. Not because demand is going to go down for the work, but because there are a lot of very interesting moves being made in automated machine learning. Tools that you literally feed it your data, and it does that entire job for you. You feed it your data, and you say, predict which customer I should talk to, and the machine does all the work for you. It runs hundreds of thousands of different models, cleans your data, does the whole process.
They're going to be obsolete in about 5 years.
Well, I don't do that job, but they will be obsolete. Not obsolete, they will be severely diminished in the next 10 years. If your job is simply to build basic regression models, you are going to be out of a job in the next 5 to 10 years. However, you can always outrun the machines. If you can build more and more complex deep learning neural networks, the machines aren't there yet. So if you can outrun the machines, you've got a lifespan. But I wouldn't advise your kids to get into this, if you have young kids.
But do you think it does get to a point where data warehouse is more off the shelf?
So the question was, is it going to get to a point where data warehousing is productized like that too? This is just the model building. Data warehousing is a much more complicated concept. We'll talk about that here. So, moving away from the model building and talking about building the structures around the models, the Advanced Business Intelligence Architect builds those relational structures. This has a very low barrier to entry. Like I said, everyone here is qualified for this job. You might not like the pay of the job you get first time around, but everybody here is qualified for something. Demand here is very high, honestly. The vast majority of data professionals are BI professionals, and that's not changing. The reason that's not subject to the same issues as the advanced data analyst is those automated machine learning tools require something. They require your data to be in a very specific format. And automated data ingestion and transformation is a much harder process. So we are definitely decades away from that being mainstream. So that's where the future is in the data engineering part. Like I said, the model building is pretty much just pure math, and computers are way better at math than we are.
So basically what you're saying is statistician and advanced data analysts will help to enable the technology, and the users of that application will take their job of the statistician and the data analyst.
That's a very interesting point.
That's exactly what I can understand in a very flat language.
That is, his comment was basically that the advanced data analysts are going to be replaced by a combination of the machines building the models and the users using the models. At least that was my understanding, and he's right. Again, that's getting pretty academic at that point, so we can talk about that in a minute. The advanced big data architect, to come back around, is a very similar job to the BI architect, except it's a little bit harder. It's using very new technology versus technology that's been pretty well defined. And that causes a barrier to entry, specifically because there are no drag and drop tools for this space. Everything is coding. You have to, at the very least, have a good understanding of Python. If you want to get even better than that, you have to understand Scala and Java. Demand here is pretty low, honestly. There aren't too many organizations dipping their toes in this, and the ones that are don't hire giant teams of them, generally. But this is where the jobs are going to be in 5, 10, 20 years. That's where everything is moving. Advanced data analysts are moving to big data architecture, and BI architects are moving to big data architecture. So, If I had to make a recommendation, I would generally say start in the BI architect realm if you're starting from nowhere, and then move into one of the other ones. If you prefer more of the analyst side of things, move to the analyst side, and if you prefer the architecture side of things, move to the big data architect side. So, where do we start? At the end of this, if you don't actually go home and do something, then we all just had a nice conversation for an hour and a half. So, what are you going to do? Step one, choose a role. It doesn't need to be the role of your lifetime. This isn't a Catholic marriage. You can swap later. Once you choose that role, follow the links here to get a certification. Like I said, the cheapest certifications are $100. I don't know your financial situation, but there are organizations that'll help sponsor that. In fact, if you can't come up with that money and you really want one, talk to me, because the BI group has some funds, and I might be able to get you some. Don't tell anybody I said that. Prepare for that certification with the books, the webinars, and the build your own projects that we talked about, and get certified. But much, much more importantly than the certification, get out and network. Machines aren't going to give you a job. Machines definitely aren't going to give you a job that you may or may not be qualified for. So get out and talk to people. Specifically, talk to the thought leaders around you, talk to the recruiters, talk to the people who run user groups. Because they are here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to help you. So please get out and work as much as you can. Other than that, thank you for coming tonight. And we can have